Cyber Threat Brief for May 28, 2026. CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, added a critical light-speed cPanel plugin flaw to the KEV Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog with a Friday midnight deadline. Ransomware actors from Silent Ransom Group are showing up in person at law firms to steal data directly from workstations. CrowdStrike disrupted the Glassworm botnet that poisoned hundreds of open-source packages targeting developer supply chains. Here's the full breakdown of today's top security stories. Daily Cybersecurity Brief. May 28, 2026. Next section, Critical Alerts. CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, adds light-speed cPanel plugin flaw to KEV Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog CVE 2026-48172. A critical privilege escalation vulnerability in the light-speed cPanel user-end plugin is under active exploitation. CVE 2026-48172 stems from incorrect privilege assignment in the LSWS. Redisable function, allowing unauthenticated remote attackers to execute arbitrary scripts with root privileges. CISA added it to the KEV catalog on May 27 with a May 29 midnight deadline for federal agencies. The flaw affects all versions between v2.3 and v2.4. 4. EPSS, the exploit prediction scoring system, score is 0. 92nd percentile. Action, update cPanel user-end plugin, bundled with WHM plugin, to the latest version immediately. Check for exploitation evidence with grep RE, cPanel JSON ipfunc, equals redisable /var/cPanel /logs /usr/local /cPanel /logs /2/dev /null. If output appears, examine the IPs, determine if valid and block if not. Review system logs for actions taken by detected IPs. Sources, bleeping computer. CIS adds 3 additional KEV entries, CVE 2026-8398, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. 3 vulnerabilities added to the Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog based on active exploitation evidence. CVE 2026-8398 is an embedded malicious code vulnerability in Daemon Tools Lite, is an unspecified TAN stack vulnerability, and is embedded malicious code in NX console. EPSS scores for the 2 rated entries are minimal, 8th and 12th percentile, suggesting targeted exploitation rather than broad scanning, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action, prioritize remediation per vendor instructions. If mitigations are unavailable, discontinue use. Federal agencies must comply with BOD 2021 deadlines. Sources, CISA. Next section, Ransomware and Extortion. Silent Ransom Group targets law firms with in-person data theft. The FBI warned that Silent Ransom Group, also known as Luna Moth, Chatty Spider, UNC 3753, is targeting law firms through social engineering, including in-person appearances. Active since 2022 and focused on law firms since spring 2023. The group poses as IT personnel via phone calls and phishing emails to establish remote access using legitimate tools. In Evolve Tactics, SRG actors now physically appear at victim locations to insert storage devices into workstations. The group conducts data theft extortion attacks without encryption, stealing sensitive client data and threatening to leak or sell it. Legal was the 4th most targeted industry by ransomware in early 2026. SRG uses WinSCP or hidden/renamed rclone to exfiltrate data to Google Drive, OneDrive, or external drives. The group faces no arrests or infrastructure disruptions to date and likely operates from Russia. Action, harden remote access controls with MFA, multi-factor authentication. Train staff to verify IT support requests through separate channels before granting access. Monitor for use of WinSCP and rclone in unexpected contexts. Implement physical security controls to prevent unauthorized device insertion. Review data exfiltration logs for activity to cloud file sharing platforms. Sources, dark reading. Reconstructing Akira ransomware kill chain from Log Sans published a detailed forensic walkthrough of an Akira ransomware intrusion at a mid-sized organization using only SSLVPN syslog and Windows evtex exports. Initial access came through a brute force attack against a single local SSLVPN account that had been disabled in Active Directory but remained provisioned on the firewall. The account had no MFA and survived a 6-hour credential stuffing attack from a single hosting provider IP. Post-VPN, the attacker pivoted to a jump host and ran textbook discovery commands, nltest netgroup, whoami, add find. About 24 hours later, EAD 4000, 769 events showed RC4 encrypted Kerberoasting attempts against 3 service accounts within a 90-second window. The reconstruction demonstrates the value of joining perimeter and endpoint logs to identify attack sequencing days before encryption. Action: audit local firewall accounts and remove any that are deprovisioned in Active Directory. Enforce MFA on all VPN accounts. Implement geo-blocking or IPS rules to stop single-source brute force attempts. Monitor EAD 4688 process creation events for discovery tool patterns and LTest, net, exe, adfind. Alert on clusters of EAD 4769 RC4 encrypted Kerberos requests as Kerberoasting indicators. Sources: SansISC. Next section, business and infrastructure threats. CrowdStrike disrupts Glassworm botnet targeting developer, supply chain. CrowdStrike, in partnership with Google and Shadowserver, disrupted all 4 command and control channels associated with Glassworm persistent supply chain campaign targeting software developers since early 2025. Glassworm operators systematically targeted developers through Trojanized VS Code extensions on Microsoft VS Code Marketplace and OpenVSX, malicious NPM and Python packages, and compromised GitHub repositories. Over 300 poisoned using stolen developer credentials. The malware delivered data theft capabilities, credentials, crypto wallets, system profiling, and a WebSocket-based JavaScript RAT called Glassworm RAT that harvested browser data, screenshots, keystrokes, and clipboard content. Infected hosts were converted into covert infrastructure. SOX proxies, hidden VNC servers, and remote execution nodes. The operation used 4 resilient command and control channels simultaneously: Solana blockchain dead drop resolver, BitTorrent DHT queries, Google Calendar event titles as dead drops, and direct connections to commercial VPS infrastructure. All 4 channels were neutralized simultaneously. The operators are likely Russia-based based on CIS country execution checks and Russian language comments in code. Action: audit VS Code extensions and remove any not from verified publishers. Review NPM and Python package dependencies for suspicious additions. Hunt for indicators of compromise shared by CrowdStrike. Monitor for use of SOX proxies, hidden VNC servers, and unusual Node.js processes. Harden developer workstation security and credential storage. Review GitHub repository commit history for unauthorized changes. Sources: CrowdStrike. The Hacker News Security Week. SimJack attack hijacks AI coding agents for supply chain, attacks Adversa AI disclosed SimJack. A novel attack that turns AI coding agents into supply chain attack delivery systems by hijacking symlinks in the development process. The attack requires attacker control of a coding agent repo, a malicious MCP server, and a developer using an AI coding tool. A malicious symlink is renamed to appear innocuous, but redirects to the malicious MCP server. A CP command automatically inserts the attacker's payload into the agent's configuration, registering the malicious MCP server. On next restart, the planted server spawns and the attacker's code runs unsandboxed, able to steal SSH keys, cloud tokens, and browser sessions, or destroy production assets. If the attack targets CI pipelines, the blast radius expands with no further user interaction, since CI runners contain deployment secrets. Adversa tested the attack against 5 major coding agents: Claude Code, Gemini CLI, Antigravity CLI, Cursor Agent CLI, Grok Build CLI, GitHub Copilot CLI, and found it worked in all cases. Google, Cursor, and Anthropic initially rejected the report, but Anthropic quietly hardened Claude Code weeks later to resolve symlinks before approval and show the real destination path. Action: review and approve file operations carefully in AI coding tools, especially CP commands involving configuration directories. After Anthropic's hardening update, ensure Claude Code is on the latest version. For other coding agents, manually inspect symlink destinations before accepting copy operations. Audit MCP server registrations in coding agent configurations. Implement least privilege access for CI runners and rotate secrets regularly. Sources: Security Week. Next section, Windows/AD security. Active Directory password policy, best practices analysis of AD password policy trade-offs between security and user frustration. Traditional complexity rules lead to predictable patterns like password 2026. A modern approach prioritizes length over complexity with passphrases. NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, recommends allowing passwords up to 64 characters. Raising the minimum to 15+ characters strengthens security. Solutions like SpecOps password policy block weak passwords at creation using custom banned word lists and checking against 4+ billion known breached credentials. Length-based aging ties expiration periods to password length, encouraging longer passwords with extended or removed expiry unless compromise is detected. Mandatory password expiration without evidence of compromise leads to minimal tweaks and incremental changes. Password managers remove the burden of remembering dozens of credentials and prevent reuse across systems. Action: review AD password policies to prioritize length over complexity. Implement breach password protection against known, compromised credential databases. Consider length-based aging to incentivize longer passwords. Deploy an approved password manager to prevent reuse. Extend or remove expiry periods when users create long, robust passwords and you have controls to detect compromised credentials. Sources: Bleeping Computer. Next section, Patch Priority. Lightspeed cPanel Plugin, CVE 2026-48172, Critical Severity, Actively Exploited Privilege Escalation. Update to latest version by May 29. Daemon Tools Lite, TAN Stack, NX Console, CVE 2026-8398, CISA KEV Editions, Embedded Malicious Code, Remediate per Vendor Instructions or Discontinue Use, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Guidia Container Registry, CVE 2026-27771, High Severity Unauthenticated Access to Private Container Images. Update to version 1.26.2. Developer Environments, Audit VS Code Extensions, NPM/Python packages, GitHub repos for Glassworm IOCs, harden credential storage and access controls, VPN accounts, remove deprovisioned local firewall accounts, enforce MFA, implement geo-blocking to prevent Akira-style credential stuffing. Next section, Vulnerability Disclosures. Guidia Private Container Image Exposure, CVE 2026-27771. A vulnerability in Guidia allows unauthenticated remote attackers to pull private container images from Guidia deployments without credentials. CVE 2026-27771, CVSS, the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, 8.2, affects all versions prior to 1.26.2. The private designation on container repositories did not deliver expected protection. The flaw went undetected for close to 4 years and likely impacts more than 30,000 deployments across over 30 countries, with the majority in China, the U.S., Germany, France, and the U.K. Affected organizations span healthcare providers, aerospace manufacturers, retail infrastructure, and ISPs. Any fork of Guidia should be treated as potentially impacted. For Gjo has been confirmed impacted. Action: update to Guidia version 1.26.2 immediately. If patching is not immediate, set service. Require Signin view equals true in Guidia configuration as a temporary workaround. Note: this isn't ideal if some containers are meant to be public. Review container pull logs for unauthorized access. Rotate secrets in any container images that may have been exposed. Sources: The Hacker News. Microsoft Security Update Guide, Linux CVE, or Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures. Publications: Microsoft published 24 Linux kernel CVEs to its Security Update Guide, covering various subsystems including MD/RAID 10 deadlocks, media drivers, HID drivers, NetFilter, XFS, Thermal Core, RDMA, RxRPC Crypto, KVM, ALSA, IMU, OpenSwitch, Selinux, UDF, Net/SMC, and BPF. These entries have minimal metadata, information published, and no CVSS scores or exploitability assessment. Most have EPSS scores in the 5th-12th percentile where reported, indicating low probability of exploitation. These appear to be Linux kernel fixes that Microsoft is tracking for WSL or Azure Linux compatibility. Sources: MSRC. Next section, General Security News. Lastwall raises $11.5 M. For Quantum Resilient Identity Platform, Lastwall announced $11.5 million in Series extension funding for its identity security and quantum resilience platform. The company provides secure identity management for defense and government organizations, focusing on credential attacks, phishing, and post-quantum threats. Its ID Command Suite combines zero-trust architecture with PKI and passwordless authentication in 3 configurations: Enterprise, Cloud-Native, Tactical, Field Deployable on-premises for DDIL environments, and Bolt, Biometric add-on for AAL3 assurance. The solution evaluates 200 contextual signals, keystroke cadence, mouse movement, hardware profiling, to assign risk scores and trigger additional authentication when needed. Quantum Shield is a quantum-safe TLS terminator and load balancer using NIST-approved post-quantum cryptography algorithms with backward compatibility. The company earned FedRAMP moderate authorization and has secured U.S. government systems. Sources: Security Week. Next section, trends and context. Developer supply chains remain under sustained pressure with two major stories today. CrowdStrike's disruption of Glassworm shows the operational maturity of Russia-linked actors poisoning open-source ecosystems at scale, while the SimJack research demonstrates how AI coding agents introduce new trust boundaries that attackers are already exploiting. The pattern across both is automation. Glassworm automated package poisoning and infrastructure conversion, while SimJack automates payload injection through developer approval workflows. Ransomware tactics continue to diversify, with silent ransom groups shift to in-person data theft representing a rare and concerning escalation beyond purely technical attack chains. CISA's addition of 4 actively exploited vulnerabilities in one day, including a critical cPanel flaw with a Friday deadline, underscores the velocity required for vulnerability response in 2026. That concludes today's Cyber Threat Brief. From Carolina, Clear Tech. Stay patched, stay vigilant.